Welcome back to Tone Bogans. It's the last episode for season 1, and we're going to have a quick look at recording, mixing, and mastering. Firstly, when I set up to record, I like to do a little practice run to make sure that my levels are not exceeding -6 decibels. The reason for this is so that I retain a little bit of headroom for any unexpected clipping that might occur. And also, when I was at music school, it was just the industry standard. I'm kind of locked into it because that's something that I learned. Pedals can be really unpredictable, so if I know that I have a really wild chain that's going to run away and possibly clip and ruin my take, I'll move my compressor to the back end of the chain. Also, if you have one, I'm saving for one, you could use a compression rack mount before the sound card, and that way you can have your guitar compressor at the front of your chain and everything mildly compressed to remove any unexpected peaks as you are recording. Without getting too technical, we want to also ensure that we're not recording any lower than about -20 decibels, and that's simply to drown out the hiss that occurs when you are using basically a guitar that picks up the lights, the screen, it picks up noise just as part of the circuitry as well in your pedals. It amplifies that noise, so we want to make sure that we are recording loud enough to avoid that kind of hiss in the background. So for my ambient guitar tracks, I don't tend to EQ or change my levels too much. I don't pan, I don't really do anything. I just keep recording until all of the parts are completed. Whereas when I am recording for pop and for rock, I will actually go into every channel strip, add an EQ, set my levels relative to whatever else is playing, and sometimes I'll pan, sometimes I won't. It depends on what I'm composing and how much I need to hear what's going on and how everything fits into the song that I'm constructing. And that's where we come into mixing, because mixing literally starts with EQ and level setting and panning. During the mixing process, I personally like to use metering a lot because your ears do get a little bit fatigued and they lie to you. Your ears lie to you as soon as they get tired. So while I don't heavily rely on metering and anything visual to mix, I do like to have that as a reference so I know what's going on, because sometimes I will think, oh, that has got so much harmonic content, and I'll pull it back and it hasn't actually got it at all, and then I find that I have to adjust it in future. So I will look at, say, my EQ meter that tells me what frequencies are in play and kind of cross-check with what I'm hearing as well. Now, I will adjust my EQ in relation to an amp sim if I'm using one. If I am using an amp sim, I will only use EQ to cut frequencies that I don't want. Then I let the amp sim reshape my tone. If I am not using an amp sim, I will also boost with an EQ. So I keep my track channel strip relatively clean, so I've got my EQ and I've got my amp sim, and then the next thing that I will add is another compressor just to smooth off the top of that. And again, make sure that everything is not clipping. It's really all I use compression for, is just to take those very top peaks away from my signal. And if you have to boost too much from within a compressor, you probably need to go into something more complex like automation, which we can look at later in another video. Now, mixing is a matter of personal taste, and do not let anybody tell you otherwise. This is where you can get creative and do whatever you want with your mix, as long as it does have some rules that you follow, especially in terms of drums. You probably don't want your snare to drown out any vocals, for example, but you can get super creative with that snare and you can put delay on it, you can put reverb on it, you can put whatever you want on whatever track you want, as long as everything remains in balance. And that is what mixing is about. It is about balancing everything that you want to have in your song in terms of instruments. Now, with my ambient tracks, I don't tend to use a lot of plug-in reverb or delay. I keep that restricted to my pedals more as a performance kind of thing more than a creative decision. I want to record a performance. Adding a plug-in kind of sometimes for me takes away from it, but I do have a really good recommendation for plugins for ambient. There's one called Xenoverb, and it's pretty much the Strymon Big Sky in software form. It almost looks identical as well with the parameters on the screen. When I do use effects like delay and reverb, I will mostly use them on a group bus or an effects bus. If you only have one track that you've recorded, you can of course put it on your channel strip. But if you have multiple tracks, you can save your computer from shutting down when you overload it by grouping everything and then just applying minimal plugins to your project. It will save you a ton of CPU and you won't get the spinning ball of death, which is fantastic for creative flow. You don't really want to have to stop a session because you've overloaded your computer with multiple instances of the same plugin. You can streamline your workflow by looking into group buses. I also like to use my group buses to split my guitars into frequencies, so low, mid and high. And then especially for YouTube, I like to put stereo imaging on those group buses as well. So I keep my low range as mono. I keep my mid range probably anywhere between 25% and 50% panned. And then my high sparkly bits, I do like to pan them quite wide, and I use isotope imager. With mastering, I am by no means an authority on this subject, so I'm pretty much just going to tell you what plugins I'm using on the end of my chain to add a little bit of clarity, a little bit of sparkle, and just to generally glue that mix together. Logic has some really good presets. You can just load one of those if you need to. But I am using a limiter, an EQ, a compressor. I'm also using Abbey Road's mastering for a little bit of warmth and again a little bit more width as well. Then I have the Waves L1 maximizer, and on the end of that I have a metering plugin, and that is so I know how hot the signal is going to be when I export it. While I don't want to go into too much detail again because it's a very niche and quite confusing subject for metering, if you want to know what I'm metering at, it is -10 to -12 decibels of output, which kind of doesn't make any sense if you know nothing about metering, but that could answer some questions if you happen to have those questions. All of these things, apart from the technical side of recording, they are personal taste. Go and do whatever you think you need to do to make that song your own. Now, this closes off Tone Bogans Season 1. I'm going to take a little break from Tone Bogans and it will return in 2020. I will have other content that I'll be posting instead of Tone Bogans, but probably not once per week. I am also going to do a giveaway for my current subscribers for supporting my channel when I basically relaunched it into this music channel. I so appreciate you taking your time to be here and choosing to watch my videos over the billions of videos that are available on YouTube. I so appreciate it, and we are going to do a giveaway for you guys, especially as a thank you for that. I will catch you very soon because I will tell you what you need to do to win this giveaway. Thank you again. I hope everything has helped you expand your knowledge, and thanks for watching.